What is beat? What is beat? He asked me what beat was, so I told him beat is not a what, beat is an it. What is beat? It's jazz blues. What is crying out on a night of moody stars over a...
Hello, my name is Debbie Tosun Kilday. I'm the founder and owner of the National Beat Poetry Foundation and its festivals. I founded the National Beat Poetry Foundation to bring different perspectives to how people view the beat poets. I feel a great injustice was done in the past. My goal is to bring people together through poetry, art, and music. Change the negative views and warped truths of beat poets into a positive image. I try to focus on the natural world, respect all forms of life, and help preserve what is left of the wild spaces and the earth itself. We are all interconnected to each other. Our words matter. The Beat laureates in my organization are not degenerates, drug addicts, and alcoholics. I certainly am not, nor do I condone that type of behavior. I'm building a new generation of beat poets, freedom and growth, and giving all people a voice. I did not experience that in traditional poetry circles. I wasn't accepted there. To me, the word beat means to keep evolving, and that is my goal. Welcome, everyone. Today, we have Clyde Matson, who's a creative writer and a mentor to many, and he's been named the Creative Writer and Mentor Beat Poet Laureate for 2021, and it's a lifetime award. I'm very happy to be presenting this award to you, Clive.
Oh, look at that. Nice.
I wish I could be giving it to you in person, but that's okay. It'll be coming to you through the mail soon. And I want you to tell a little bit about yourself and maybe read something. Okay.
Okay. Well, I was a kid when I ran into the Beat Generation at 19 in New York City, and I just loved it and loved them. And then I ran screaming about 7, 8 years later from the drugs, from the sexual predation, from the party atmosphere. And then went and got my MFA at Columbia University in 1992. And at Columbia, they taught me nothing except to respect the background that the Beats had given me. Ginsberg went around to the big people of his time, William Carlos Williams, Ezra Pound, and passed on to us in New York what he learned. And it was modernism. It was like wiping the lens before our eyes and writing what we really see. And Eliot gave us the example for that in Proof Rock, where he says, "Let us go then, you and I, while the evening is spread across the sky." And that's the template he received from the century before. And we expect a romantic line like when Scheherazade drapes his scarves over the evening, over the sunset or something like that. And instead he says, "Spread across the sky like a patient etherized upon a table." And that's a challenge to everybody who follows, is to see that patient, to see what's out there and to write about it. So that's what I learned at Columbia, was that my background that Ginsberg and the Beats gave me is really precious. So although I don't look I don't even look a little bit like a Beat, and I haven't got a flask of, what's that rot gut we were all drinking? The red wine? Anyway, I don't have a bottle of that in my back pocket or a couple of blunts in my front pocket. I don't do any drugs. I've done like 400 plus meetings. Okay, so I'm backpacking in 2015 at a favorite spot in the Sierra, and I look up and I notice that a lot of the trees are dying, that there's scum around the lakes. In the distance, the air is brown from a fire. The whole place was decaying, and I'm thinking, in 10 years, this place may not be recognizable. And so I started writing a poem, Hello Paradise, Paradise Goodbye, and I'll read a couple of sections from it now. Light embraces everything, everywhere the same. Into the market for a potato chip. 40 flavors one cabinet, 50 the next. In the aisle, 450. Ice cream, same count. Same count, water, milk, wine, doubled count. Butter, vitamins, power bars, 450, and one chip speaks to you, to me. Nifty. Profusion, confusion, contusion, illusion, one tinge infused with turmeric, saline blue, perfect for the individual, perfect for me, for you. No waste. The multinationals tuned to your special taste. Quote, say it loud. Aren't you proud? Look what we're handing down. Ah, geez, so what? It's a potato chip. One salty, tasty capitalism tidbit, one splotch on the table. Don't trip. Slippery slope, ably greased with jizz. Someone else's jizz. Feed me. Feed me tastes so I won't grok my own. Clang. Your entire being knows you're alone. One among 450 and no touch. Face, chest, arms, hands, thighs, legs. No leisure, no contact, no bone, and skin-covered galaxies inside are opaque. Quote, loneliness, the ache, too deep to grasp. Motherfuck, they got you, got me. We're marketeered. Tsunami caresses our secret spot, and we splash down in the river of tears. Stay healthy, work soft, be tender, get fit, stay woke, be cool. Sparkling clear TV screens rotate on wheels, behind wheels, beyond wheels, before wheels. Actor, singer, spinning, caressing gently. Your fragile, sensitive wrinkles, each one more intimate, and which one will reveal how to be more beautifully yourself. The rich, the healthy, the happy, realized people doing exactly what they want. So you can too. A siren song calls up your tender G-spot place. A smiling, exquisite face proffers one secret desire. Yours, mine. Every such spirit is horrifying. Ein jeder Anhel is schrecklich. Feed me images so I don't have to feel. Dude, they're acting. They're paid to look like that, so you will try that look. Why do you feel like you're a marketing experiment? Because you are a marketing experiment. Turn around and I'm next, marketeer. Happy-go-lucky, singing a song. How could we go so terribly wrong? In one geologic instant, everything gelled. 13.8 billion years from the Big Bang, we learned how psychology works. We learned how to sell. Take it to the banks, marketers, who would have figured it out without your help, Freud. But thanks. Say it loud. Aren't you proud? Look what we're handing down, ably greased with jism, someone else's jizz. Peril in the garden in peril. That's my potato chip section. What's on my mind a lot now is the military section. What are we seeing in the news all the time? Afghanistan and leaving Afghanistan, and what the military learned was to keep the journalists off the scene. During the Vietnam War, we saw news like that every night. Everybody did. So there was public response. Afghanistan, they've kept hidden from us. Oh yeah, we get little surface bits of news, but we don't know what it's like. Like when you get in a Humvee and drive through those streets, the guys in the Humvee are trying to figure out what position to sit in where they won't get killed when an IED strikes the Humvee. That's their concern. Every day. We don't know anything about that. The other thing that has kept Afghanistan out of the news, the real Afghanistan out of the news, is there's no draft. The Army has learned how to fill its ranks by following young men. When my son dropped out of college after 3 weeks at Hayward State, they called him within a week. The Army recruiter called him. So they don't need a draft. They're just picking up the guys who are vulnerable. So here's the military section. Hello, paradise. Paradise, goodbye. The setting sun makes the skyline look like crooked teeth in the mouth that's devouring us all. 1950s pilots returned from North Korea with ordnance still in the bays. Crosshairs show no targets, nothing but rubble and burnt ground. Quote, we bombed them back into caves. One death is too many. One. The lives of Libyans, Iraqis, Afghanis, Yemenis, Pakistanis, Koreans, Somalis, Syrian, Sudanese never occurred to them to matter. Their portfolios grow fatter. General Dynamics, Raytheon, Boeing, Northrop, Lockheed. 50th anniversary of Summer of Love, a modern day hippie in tie-dye t-shirt and hat. Bring the troops home. From Nam, from Libya, Iraq, Afghanistan, Yemen, Somalia, Syria, Pakistan, Croatia, Greece, Hong Kong, Guam, South Korea, Japan, and the others. America's troops deployed to 138 of 195 nations in 2016. States U.S. Joint Special Operations Command. 138 nations where they don't belong. One country is too many. One. You think things are better now? More hidden and much worse. Our government is our worst fucking enemy. America, responsible for 30 million deaths since World War II and counting. Western culture responsible for twice 30 mil and counting. And 250 million in trans-like suicide pacts in the US and counting. Lives never occur to them to matter. Boeing, Northrop, General Dynamics, Lockheed, Raytheon, and the rest. 3,000 deaths from Twin Towers plus 300 firemen and counting required for public outrage. One death is too many. One. Kunduz Hospital and counting, 60 drones a day into the Mideast and counting, 8 out of 10 drone deaths, non-combatants. Women, old men, children, young men, and women not involved. Each drone, $700,000 to $1.2 million, $35,000 an hour to operate, 60 drones a day and counting. 30 million deaths and counting. Happy-go-lucky, singing a song. How could we go so terribly wrong? Plain-looking humans talking strategy under fluorescent lights on the 4th floor in the 3rd Pentagon segment at cherrywood tables, stainless steel tables, marble tables, talking numbers, using our language. Murderers. No other word fits. Murderers. 1992 tank column in full retreat toward Baghdad. Hundreds of I surrender white flags rippling on turrets and gun barrels. Colin Powell orders gasoline sprayed to saturation overhead and throws the spark. Sawtooth Mountains and Cinnamon Desert, the backdrop that sunny afternoon. Fuel air bomb incinerates 3,000. Burning flesh and burning gas jack up the dioxide count. Murderer. No other word. Murderer. 3,000 times doubled. First the lives, then dioxide. Happy-go-lucky, singing a song. How could we go so terribly wrong? Tell us, Colin Powell, did you get your bones? Trump, did you get your bones? Mr. American Exceptionalism, Obama. Bush, did you get your bones? Clinton, the first Bush, Reagan, Carter, Ford, Nixon, did you get your bones? President Kennedy, Eisenhower, Truman, Roosevelt, did you get yours? Did you get your bones? Our leaders squat cross-legged, draped in silk and polyester, cufflinks and ties, monochrome on a pile of bones. That's a lot of hide. Act well your part. There all the honor lies. Coiffed, coached, foundationed, airbrushed, neocon coup strategists, Cheney, Rumsfeld, Leo Strauss, Rice, squat cross-legged on a pile. Put this shit, 3,000, those 30 million, those 250 million in your pipe and smoke it. We are ants, scurrying around under the bushes, under the Koch brothers, Montgomery Chase, shadow families, the banks. Lives never occur to them to matter. Their portfolios grow fatter. My beloved country, your beloved country. No excuse, it's what governments do. It's trans-induced. It's motherfucking me, it's motherfucking you. The karma is ours, whoever pulls the trigger. Quote, we're tied like threads in a single garment of destiny, inextricably woven together. The darkness surrounds, and what the hell? Buy a goddamn big car and drive, he said. Smoke, she said. Screw, he said. Fight, she said. Talk to the hand, talk to the hand. Boeing, Northrop, General Dynamics, Lockheed, Raytheon, and the rest put us to the test. Military contrails write our obituary across the sky. Hello, paradise. Paradise, goodbye.
Thank you, Clive.
Thank you for having me.
Unfortunately, that was very true, what you wrote.
Yeah, it's a grief and guilt-stricken poem.
So next I have Ngoma Hill. He's a new generation Be Poet Laureate 2021, and it's a lifetime award. Congratulations, Ngoma. I'm going to be sending you your award. Whoops. You should be very proud. And you were also a past New York State Beat Poet Laureate, 2017 to 2019. And you're sometimes called, I heard, Dr. Rocka Fiddle and the godfather of spoken word. You gotta turn on your mic there.
Oh, I didn't realize I was unmuted. I was agreeing with you. And yeah. I'm really glad to be here to be able to do this. I'm very sorry I'm not going to be able to make it to the event next week. I've had death in my family, and you know, these things happen. I guess maybe the way I came into finding out about the beat movement was pretty interesting, because I was a kid during that time, and I'm a Vietnam vet, so I knew what was going on back in the States too. And although I was drafted, I didn't volunteer, so my whole existence in the Army was one of resistance while I was there. And now that you started talking about the beat movement, the first kind of person that I actually came into contact with that was a part of the beat movement was Amiri Baraka, who was Leroy Jones, but he was Amiri Baraka by the time I met him, and he was in Newark. And now that I thought about that, I decided to do this piece. Here we go. This is called I Need My Glasses. This is called After My Year-Long Backpacking Trip Through Sunny Southeast Asia. Walking on concrete seemed really strange. Trying to sleep on a bed was weird too. Seemed like it was too soft. It was still hot in Virginia in September, so at least I wasn't shocked by the weather. But buses backfiring had me wanting to duck for cover. Labor Day fireworks didn't help much either. I wasn't working yet, so with time on my hands, wooded parks were quite comforting. My boys had supplied me with a steady diet of revolutionary literature, and the camaraderie of the brothers in Nam had me thinking the revolution was about to jump off. After all, the last poets and Black Panthers were all in the news. J. Edgar Hoover had declared them dangerous. Red, black, and green buttons and necklaces with black fists were popular too. I came back mad as hell with an itchy trigger finger ready for the shit to jump off. Cambodian red and tabs of good acid comforted me, but otherwise didn't help the problem either. Nobody told me I was suffering PTSD. There was no debriefing. Had me thinking there was some real Black unity back in the world. My marriage was going to shit. Paranoia had me thinking everyone was an agent. After attending a Panther rally, I learned the feds were questioning my friends. The idiots paid me a visit and asked my opinion on revolution, like I'd really tell them. I told them all Black folks should move back to Africa. Having survived Pleiku and the Tet Offensive, I set out to make up for all the nookie I had missed. Good poontang is life affirming, and I needed to check daily to see if I was still alive. Trust was a bit hard to come by, so I set out to find people of like minds. Most of the homies were strung out on partying, and skag was taking over the neighborhood. Even the offerings of the Black bourgeoisie nodded. The Talented 10th mainlined. Not liking needles, I dodged the doogie bullet. Everybody else was strung out on Jesus. I was searching for Ogun, but this was the late 60s in the Black Belt South, and he was hiding out not to be found. I thought about checking out the NOI, but I was too cool for that. I rocked bell-bottom hip huggers and a big afro. Bow ties and bean pies just didn't satisfy my sense of style. Packed up my sky blue VW Bug, snuck off to Newark in the middle of the night, looking for the revolution. So that's one. Let's see what else we can do here. Da, 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 yeah. I figure I might as well take y'all to Harlem. Ghost of Harlem past, Babylon in Babylon. Harlem, oh Harlem, my pen bleeds for you. Howling like a dog in heat on a full moon night, suffering since the tree of life was bulldozed, lost forever buried in concrete invisible, wandering like a lost soul trying to find its name, battling extinction, battling on in Babylon. Telling endless stories of the people and the places and the faces that they've seen, both in this life and the past. For the door to the past leads to the future, not to repeat the bitter with the sweet. Oh yes, I remember sweet, like hot donuts from George's and bean pies and fish sandwiches from the Muslim steak and take when you got the munchies. Schools at the crossroads, 125th and Lenox on a stepladder listening to Malcolm, Marcus, and Carlos Cook. Across from the Chryssa Hotel where Fidel stayed, because they wouldn't give him a room in the inn downtown, kind of like Jesus and Mary, when Lindy was the hop, before B was the bop, long before hip-hop. Maybe some numbers runners on a bootleg or two, Langston Renaissance, Claude McKay, and Zora too. These sweet memories I bring to you, babbling on in Babylon, where Malcolm was assassinated at the Audubon. Summersfield menacing, ordered the feather in Tapawingo, town night at the Apollo. Before boys were shipped overseas to fight Ole Miss wars, before the smack and the crack, buying the latest LP from Sakula's record shack. Checking out Miriam and Hugh Grayson at the grass, before Bad Thomas St. Carol waved his pearl-handled pistol in the air at Harriet Tubman's school, and was later assassinated. We still go through the Cotton Club. Duke's spirit still lives there. The late night eat spot was Wells, where chicken and waffles dwell, long before IHOP got Christopher Columbus fever and discovered it. When African vendors lined 125 Street selling their wares, incense and oil in the air, I'm just here bringing your memory back to black, babbling on in Babylon. Oh Harlem, oh Harlem, oh Harlem, my pen bleeds for you. Little something. Let's see. I got one more, I think. Actually, I could go all day, but I got one more. Yeah. Track 24. Dee-dee-dee. I figure as long as I'm talking about Harlem, I might as well do this poem here. It's called Zoology. Anthology. Epigraph. The circus is in town. The circus is in town, and you never get out of town. The original last poets. Sundays, the visitors came on tour buses uptown, double parked for blocks, soaking up space and gospel. Fill the offering plate, leave before the sermon, don't speak English anyhow. Theater of reality is in the street, across 7th Avenue at the liquor store. T-Bone does the baboon, pants hanging off his ass, cracked out, toothless. Cameras, snap, snap. Lucy's, he mumbles, got that cheap nicotine, real surreal it all seems, the American dream. Can you spare some change? Life is a crapshoot. Give me a small down payment on the Triborough Bridge. Watch the natives do the hustle, selling stolen village voices for 50 cents. Smile, click, click. Next stop, Sylvia's, now owned by Japanese entrepreneurs to dissuade fear of a black planet. After all, Starbucks is down the street from the Apollo, just to make sure caffeine dreams are realized. The homeless man with the raccoon eyes opens the door, reaching for a tip since the stock market dipped. Street corner prophets proselytize, screaming about the devil. Jesus never called himself a Christian, but the Holy Bible says God made the devil too, so boo, we ain't scared of ghosts, not even holy ones. Pour a little liquor for the walking dead. There are offerings in the cracked plate on the altar by the bodega owned by Muslims on the corner. Just jazz and gibberish spoken here. No jive. Don't waste cash on a tour guidebook. The jelly speaks in tongues. So that's me for today. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
I love those rhymes. The homeless guy looking for a tip because the market dipped.
Yeah.
Awesome. That's awesome.
Thank you. Thank you.
You know, Mary Baraka said something. One of the quotes I love best from him is when he was asked what the Beat Generation was. He said something like, all kinds of people, all classes, races, economic stature people got together and decided that society sucked.
That's pretty good definition. For real. Yeah.
Nice work. I enjoyed that very much.
Thank you. Will this be available for other people to watch it later?
Yes.
Yeah, okay, cool.
Next, I have Wang Ping. She is the Minnesota Beat Poet Laureate 2021 to 2023. She's a poet, a writer, a photographer, performance. She's a multimedia artist and educator. She has worked closely with poets worldwide, and she translates for them into Chinese. One well-known poet that she's been involved with for years is Gary Snyder. And I want to welcome you, Wang.
Thank you, Deb.
And I want to show you, this is what you'll be getting in the mail, your award.
It's beautiful. Thank you for all the great work you have been doing. And Deb wants me to talk about myself. I came from China in 1985. Then a year and a half later, I walked into a wrong classroom that turned out to be Louis Wash's creative writing class. And probably most people probably know Louis Wash. And so I was curious. I sat down and wrote my first story, and that kind of changed my direction. And pretty soon he took me to a poetry project and to go to my first poetry reading at St. Mark's Church. And pretty soon he introduced me to Allen Ginsberg, who was looking for an interpreter and translator for the first Chinese American Poetry Festival. And he invited Beidao, Gu Chen, and all those Misty School poets. And I worked for pretty intensely with Allen and Kenneth Coach and a bunch of other poets. And I remember the first reading that took place at the Modern Art Museum, and just immediately it was a gathering of great poets from the two continents, right? On the American side, Allen Ginsberg, Gary Snyder, John Ashbery, and Ron Padgett, all these people. And on the China side, Beidao, Gu Chen, Yang Lian. And so at that time, I was also about to immigrate to Canada. My fiance was a professor of MBA business school at the McGill University, and I just, since I walked into the wrong classroom of Louis Wash, I started writing, and he told me, with your second grade English and you want to publish and make some money, it's probably easier to go to Paradise than doing what you're doing. So he actually convinced me to
Do both.
Yeah, he actually convinced me to take GMAT, not GMAT, GRE, and I actually got into McGill University MBA program without math, because I never studied math during the Cultural Revolution. So I was on the verge of immigrating and getting married and studying business, and then all this, my life changed since this poetry festival. And at the same time, by chance, Louis Wash was walking into the post office, and I asked him, what are you doing? He said he's sending an application to NEA, National Endowment for the Arts. I said, what is that? And he told me what it is. Then he said, why don't you apply? I said, no way I'm going to get this, right? Because I just barely met the basic requirement, that is 12 published poems, right? And I said, no way I'm going to apply for it. It's a waste of my time, right? And he secretly filled out the form for me and put together my 12 poems and mailed it to me for me, together with his, and I got it. So, and that same year, I also Louis Gluck selected my poem, one of the 12 precious poems I published into Best American Poetry. So it's like, it seems like all the stars lined up to change my destiny of my life, right? I was supposed to be a mother, immigrate to Canada to be a businesswoman. Those things happened. Then I stayed in America to be a starving poet. I was still very poor, right? And I didn't know at that time, you know, the NEA money won't come in till next year. And I did not like, yeah. And so I was still like, could have to go back to China anytime. So, but I took my risk and I burned my bridge, and I decided not to go to Canada and stayed in New York to be a starving poet, and here I am. So thank you everyone. To hear my story, I'm going to read 3 poems, and the first thing is Things We Carry on the Sea. It's dedicated to all the immigrants to migrating, all the children on the road, and with their parents or without their parents. And there are about 2 years ago, the estimate is about 250 million children and are refugees on the road. Things we carry on the sea. We carry tears in our eyes. Goodbye, Father. Goodbye, Mother. We carry soil in small bags. May home never fade from our hearts. We carry names, stories, memories of our village, our civilization. We carry scars from proxy wars of greed. We carry carnage of mining, droughts, floods, genocides. We carry dust of our families, incinerated in mushroom clouds. We carry our islands sinking under the sea. We carry our hands, feet, bones, hearts, and best minds to start a new life. We carry diplomas, medicine, engineer, nurse, education, math, poetry, even if they mean nothing to the other shore. We carry railroads, plantations, laundromat, cargo trucks, farms, factories, nursing homes, hospitals, schools, temples, built on our ancestors' backs. We carry old homes along the spine, new dreams in our chests. We carry yesterday, today, and tomorrow. We are orphans of the wars forced upon us. We are refugees of the sea, drowning in plastic wastes. We came from the same mother in Africa. We are your children, sisters, brothers, father and mother. Our tongues carry the same weight as we chant. I, Hub, Lib, Amour, love. Ping An, Salam, Shalom, Paz, peace. 希望, Amal, Hoffman, Esperanza, hope, 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 as we drift from dream to dream, sea to sea. Thank you. I will read from my new manuscript. It's called The River in Our Blood, and it's still summer and everything is still very green in Minnesota. I know California is just brown and burning, so I'd like to bring some green to California and to the burning island of Greece. And so the green color, the color green is very, very special, and it sits in the middle of the color spectrums, and it's the between blue and yellow, And it's the only color that actually literally creates life. And so it's no wonder most of the names or shades of green are related to food. So it's called Autobiography of Green, an edible sonnet ghazal. With fiddle hands, I fold and unfold light, painting air with emerald green, turning CO2 into sugar plus O till I drape the earth with 24 shades of green. The planet was born in a ball of fire, then basalt, then granite, then glacial ice. With sleight of hands, I pickled her into lime, sage, basil, pear, and apple green. I tap, clap, spin, whisper, sway with willows, my juniper veins open to the sun, my moss blood running toward roots, and life sings with parakeet green. Awakened from Arctic dreams, I chase grassland and forests with seaweed tendrils. A linchpin between sky and earth, my wavelength paints cypress with spruce green. Spectrum between blue and yellow, Rosetta Stone for fern, shamrock, and seafoam. Sitting amidst the rainbow wheel, I open season with chartreuse mustard green. Chinese make no difference between blue and green. They say, 青出于蓝, 必胜于蓝. So let green equals chlorophyll equals photosynthesis, or equals O equals glucose equals pear, pine, ocean green. A cycle without beginning or end. My sapphire waves, shimmering, lighting up first words, smell, taste, sound, touch, till earth hangs on the twig of olive green. Count pollens on cypress, count hands on aspen trees, count trees on earth. Behold earth in my 120 quadrillion leaves, a panthalassa of pistachio green. And the last poem is called Magic. Magic for words and for language, for poetry, magic for life. And as every day, everything I see, every bud, every flower, every fruit, every nut I see, encounter, just seems very magical to me. So I wrote this poem. Magic. Birds sing because they have a song in their throats. Fish swim because they have an ocean in their bellies. The wind blows to play with the rivers and valleys. Raindrops fall as messengers upon the earth. We move with the dance in our spirits. Children run as the world unfolds under their feet. This is the secret of magic, hidden in our brains. The people and their small things, if all taken away, what would we miss? The rustle of oak trees at dusk, the foaming river outside the window, the smell of children coming home, cheeks red from the snow, the little things you say that's not funny, but I laugh anyway just because. The birds cannot be imitated. The flowers can't be colored. The sea cannot be dammed. The mountains cannot be conquered. This is the sound of magic running in our veins, moving the sky and earth, passing through us like rivers. All the noise on earth will die, but not the silence of faith, this innocence persisting to believe, to see more than what can be seen. Thank you.
That was wonderful.
Thank you.
Next up, we are going to have William F. DeVault. He was the U.S. Beat Poet Laureate from 2017 to 2018. He's known as the romantic poet of the internet. And he is the CEO of Venetian Spider Press. And he's been a good friend to me since the beginning of this organization. I first met him in 2015 at the, yeah. So we have some history now. Welcome, William.
Thank you, Debbie. Can everybody hear me?
Yes.
Fantastic. I don't completely trust Zoom meetings, although I live on them during the week. Once in a while, something goes wrong. As Debbie said, I go back a little bit to fill in a little more of the gaps. I've been writing since I was 8 years old. I wrote my first poem in school. My teacher loved it, called in the music teacher, they put it to music. And I and two poor guys who had to wear sailor suits performed it for the parent-teacher May Day festival. It traumatized me to the point I didn't write poetry for 5 more years. Then at age 17, I discovered that if I wrote the right kind of poems, young women became dazzled. And the heavens opened up. And I've been writing pretty heavily since then. In 1996, the very nice people at Yahoo declared me the romantic poet of the internet. In 2001, I was declared Poet of the Year by Predators and Editors online survey. 2000, barely edging out J.P. Dancing Bear, who's a fantastic poet. It blew me away. 2001, I didn't win Poet of the Year, but I won Poem of the Year. In 2002, I was nominated into the Edinburgh, Scotland International Internet Festival of the Arts. And somebody only recently pointed that out to me. Now, and then these guys came along and got a hold of me and said, hey, how would you like to represent us to South Carolina? I said, why South Carolina? They said, you were born there. Yeah, but I haven't been back since I was 6 weeks old. So I worked in the background for a little while and helped out wherever I could. And Deb has been a fantastic organizer. I respect her energy and her integrity. And I respect all the rest of you here today. Ben and John wrote back cover blurbs to my latest book, Liaison, which is just out. There I did my required plug. And now we're going to get to the poetry. I was originally planning to have a much more upbeat set for today, but then this whole thing with Kabul happened, and I decided to drag out an old one from 1996 that is not about the World Trade Center. It was 5 years before the World Trade Center, but people keep saying, hey, it's about the World Trade Center. No. It was just a vision of the violence of indifference. From out of the city. From out of the city came words, small words, words like lead pellets, ringing on armor, stinging on flesh, and carrying a message of rage and honor defended. The prophet spoke in broken syntax. The facts spoke for themselves in time, and he was carried to the city square to be stoned to death in accordance with the law. Morning slid over the horizon as if on rails invisible and split the night like Trinity. Infinity seemed possible, except for the silence of the waking world. One eye open. Mourn the night and rise. Rise to your feet and climb the hill you always said you'd climb before the end of all things, for it is upon you, even in the optimism of dawn. Mourn the night and rise. Rise to your vision. Rise. The afterlife is not waiting for you, but you for it. And the madness of martyrs may call it too soon. Mourn the night and rise. Spread your bastard wings and catch the feral winds that come on the sun's fire to sweep away the night into small shadow piles in corners. From out of the city came words, final words, words like Eden, Gethsemane, Golgotha, And then the silence, the violence of indifference. That poem has haunted me ever since then. People keep bringing it up to me. I mentioned before about the Edinburgh International Internet Festival of the Arts. When I was approached to write something for it, particularly for it, a friend of mine I had known only online, but who had been a very good friend to me, named Pete Rosa, had passed away very recently. And so I wrote this poem about him called The Phoenix Colding. And I do not believe I've ever publicly performed it since Edinburgh. I can recall your presence in the people that you passed through, like a wind in branches heavy with the leaves and fruit of summer. From a distance you connected, and your friendship shone like fire in the shadows of our discontent, on the edges of our doubts. You laughed in symbols subtle and counseled when you could. Your questions parsed a questing soul, then seeking truth and peace. And though I never heard your voice or lucked to shake your hand, from our exchanges I could tell the impact of your presence. And what befalls the phoenix when the fire never comes, but leaves us in a cooling shade to miss our fellow mythic? Your heart found comrades, loves and foes, and questioned after fate. Your wings of words took you just so far. Your death was mourned by many. Yet what shall dwell in memory has spent a season real and virtual or literal. We owe you our respects. No, you don't have to jump up and down and scream. That was about Death. Death, doesn't generally get a big applause and shouldn't. Death and I have an old arrangement. I don't pester him and he doesn't pester me. I suspect Death is a she. I'll find out one day. I was going to bore you with the same poem I've done the last 2 or 3 readings, which is for my brother when he accelerates, which was written for the death of my brother about a year ago. But instead, I'm going to do another poem. I've done a fair amount recently, but I like it. And considering the volume of poetries I've read and still haven't published, when I find one that I like and I'm willing to admit I like, what can I say? No, it's not Walsingham at Padua. I've bored enough people with that one. This one's called Resurrect. Laying down a beating where I'd been eating crow. The blows are soft flesh on shattered sapphire. Too many business cards from timid MFAs. Mediocrities polluting Apollonian streams of consciousness. I'm sorry that your husband died. I acknowledge that you loved him, and he you. And I am grateful you found joy to your own side of the pillars of Heracles. The fates did not hate us, but allowed us to stumble in blind bindings until we crumbled under the weight of our best pretensions. Cornbread corners to the hollow plates of desire. I was unaware of the demon I found and bound only with your persistent assistance. Born of dragons and chained in cinnabar and pitchblende, pitchfork tongue and the dung of desecration left in the garden. He calls for you from within his cell, where I starve him with distractions and abstractions while awaiting the resurrection in a reinvented winter that comes for us all, calling us liars as the fires fade. And we are paid up beyond the end of the stay we had envisioned when we bought the condoms. The halls and walls are, as I envisioned them, described in the Romantic's whispers, using words unheard in the most ancient places where the Greek girl said I would find redemption. She was wrong, but drunk at the time. And I do not lay with the mysteries of Dionysius. Fire, fire, fire. Inspired desire conspire with the smaller mind, blinded by a scent of honeysuckle and night-blooming jasmine, reeling at the feeling of a greater death of self beyond logic and the toxic remembrances that are mangled and tangled. I gave up science and the truth of numbers when I found that I would always be bound by lesser minds, finding no freedom to discover, to uncover the essence of this transient life. Thank you. And I bet I got in under 10 minutes.
Thank you, William.
I'll be honest, when I first heard about this gig, I was tempted to pull out my poem Diogenes, which I've never done a public reading of. It's 400 lines long. I think that would have blown the 10-minute limit. So I decided to be kind to you all.
If you stay on, maybe you could do it later.
Oh, no. I will do it sometime as a separate reading. Oh, one thing I wanted to insert here, because we're talking beats. If you've read my biography, you've probably seen that 5 years ago, I think it was, I asked and got permission from the estate of Allen Ginsberg to do a podcast reading of his poem Howl, and it is available out there on the web. The only condition they set for me was that they get a copy of it, so I gave them a copy of it, but it was a great honor. So, and it was fun to read. So, have a great one, everyone. I'll stick around as long as I can.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you, Deb.
Next up, we have Bengt Bjorklyn from Sweden. He is a poet, a journalist, photographer, musician, writer, artist extraordinaire. I can't say enough about him. He was named the Sweden's Beat Poet Laureate in 2018, and it's a lifetime award that he received. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you, Debbie. Well, I have been all of those things. I am not them anymore. Today, I'm restricting myself to poetry, painting, and percussion, the 3 Ps. So peace, brother. Yeah, my journey started, like most of you know, in Turkey, in jail. That's where I started. I lived with a lot of fantastic men, of course. Jail is full of men. I remember Ronald Emmett from Chicago. He was a Black Panther. He wrote poetry reciting about the decadency of the white society and white people. But he was a great guy. I loved him. And it was Antonio Raziel. He was a rather known artist. And he was also part of the beat movement and the freak scene. He was having exhibitions in Italy, and he wrote concrete poetry, and he was into Dadaism, etc., etc. And yeah, he got a lot of people in the musicians, singers, etc. And I started my journey there with my music, with my paintings, and my poetry. Enough said of that. I'm going to read you some new stuff that I've written this summer. See what you guys, how you receive this. I will start with something like this. Late summer evening folds slow ducks and wild air into neat packages meant for oblivion. It's a closed-circuit evening, laid bare with raw nerves, waiting for the soft touch, circular men recede at dusk. Lurking in somersault summer salutation, I roll my lawn into a different perception, feeding the far island point into more food on the table. My morning, the isle and I, sets no sail, no soul to go, where all is silent and bright, a few short seconds. Tailed by the nevermore, moored by the docks of solitude, I will not be fettered by fear when the sun hits the brass gong. There are small man intentions lurking in the wrecked morning, cheating daylight to the draw, walking the dotted line. Dreams following aptitude for opening different doors, swirl its sweet longing, turn unbearable into morning sun. I and my flute will be here, breathing heavy fog, times and bridges, the why and the where. It must be said, you are no better than winds howling in the desert, whispering at dawn. In the wake of children and pedagogues flocking around the role of continuance and predatory parents, darkness will be rampant disease. Ink will finally come alive. 3 horrid men will pale, and days turn into fire. There will be reckoning. I said to the short-timed spirit, facing the paling of it all, there are tycoons spinning nowhere into a place where ordinary men can find no importance. Popes and presidents kiss my poetic earth. Religious crutches and rifles turn terror and inhuman, was the defiant reply. There will be no more. Stale beer afternoon, summer heat bellowing in pain. Love is a red-hot boil in the anal region, pointing to the floor. Priests, zealots, and bigots will claim the right to interpret the obvious and circumcise all breeders when they sleep. We will be attacked by the followers of the flat earth illusion. We will be told that we don't belong. Climate change is all about greed and avarice. The obnoxious keep on setting the human agenda. There will be war. The scent of death dying in the flower of dusk brimming lifts like a song fading. The world is an opaque dish of solitudes joined by the verbalized bones. Stranded with the flotsam, the inevitable charms of darkness, rolling into oblivion, there can be no rerun. Tides will be like birds riding the last storm. Slow afternoon rebellion unfolds in the tepid rain. Lances and arrows fly, a sudden earth rumbles. Then thunder rolled in from the fuming sea. I saw your secret in a flash moment. I saw you receding behind a hearse on fire, feeding the flames with fear and loathing. I saw you and walked away, not meaning to interrupt. Wheels of days gone, rolling into forgetfulness. Slowed response, wandering hours meander among harvested hills, where stale demons congregate. Stunned and gargled, running, lesser men lean on rules, ratified by raw consumption, dividing serendipity into no more. That was the last one.
Thank you very much. I really enjoy listening to Ben.
Thank you.
Next, we have John Burroughs. John is a nationally touring poet and performer from the Cleveland area and the author of over a dozen poetry books. He was named the Ohio Beat Poet Laureate 2019 to 2021. Welcome, John.
Thank you, Debbie. It's good to be here. I thought I had plans this afternoon and wasn't going to be able to make it, but it worked out well, and I very much enjoyed hearing everybody who's come before. So thank you. I started writing poetry when I was a teenager, but I didn't really start doing it publicly, sharing it with other people, getting involved in the poetry community until I was almost 40 years old. And since then, you know, it's kind of been a whirlwind. It's, you know, I found my family, that my long lost family that I thought I didn't have, in the poetry community. Started publishing books through Crisis Chronicles Press, and meeting all you fine folks. And I'm just really thrilled to be here. I'm going to read a poem from my latest book, which Mr. William DeVault and his Venetian Spider Press published. It's called Rattle and Numb. And the poem is Wayward Scenes Inside a Jazz Mine. A swirl in creative flux, feel a faux need to squeeze to get any out on screen or page. Feeling sage in the smoke of jasmine incense. Hearing a catalyzing muse, sick, I can't name and I can't blame you or blame me. Not sure why we need to lay it on anyone, as it is what it is and just is. And what's wrong with that? Why do we always have to find something wrong with everything? I can sing without notes or tune, and so I suspect can you, whether or not some see it as cruel or kind. Aren't we blind to believe every song needs sound waves? Every lyric needs words? Every world needs saved? Every who needs heard? Every heard needs a who? Ain't it just whatever it is? And I know Dylan said, he not busy being born is busy dying, but he failed to say he busy being born is busy dying too. And why can't we say that? Unafraid. It is what it is. And so what? The best jasmine incense burns out, and the worst lives in memory just as long and wise. Any writer wrong. What's worst or best anyway? Sense won't last forever. I think nonsense won't either, but in some sense might, like night. Wonder if one day everything we think is wrong passes on and everything right is left. Could anything be right again without us rewriting it? And when you or I wonder why I do or don't talk, maybe here's what you're missing. I'm always listening and never shut up. Sure, it's easy to think at least one of us is in this walled room, in this sided house, in this incorporated city, in this state of apparent confusion. But Daishonin said, Ichi nen sanzen, each moment possesses 3,000 realms, and I'm never outside a moment, even when I'm conscious, and your movement pervades the realms I monitor, even when you don't feel. Odd, when you don't hear. Sometimes we use the wrong ears. Wrong might be the wrong word because in certain uncertain worlds, sound waves are inefficient, often ineffectual, and even oddly misleading, despite their repeated best intentions to do otherwise. So I use them, or don't, you too, as inclination dictates or allows, but it's all now becoming evident to me that we're all ultimately a swirl in creative flux, insight, outside, out of sight, inside, becoming okay, either way, with or without our faux need to squeeze, smoke, key, jazz, mine. Thank you all.
That was very good. You always bring such passion when you're reading. John.
And play, he has fun doing it, doesn't he?
Mhm. Yeah. Next up,
What is beat? What is beat? He asked me what beat was, so I told him beat is not a what, beat is an it. What is beat? It's jazz blue. What is crying out on a night of moody stars over us?
we have Donna Ellard. She was the International Beat Poet Laureate from Canada, 2019 to 2020. She calls herself, she goes by the name Arcadian Rose and also Cloud Walker. You'll have to explain that one. And she is the founder of Sojourner Literary Festival. Welcome, Donna.
Hi there. Okay. Oh God, Cloudwalker. You would have to mention that. I can't remember what it means anymore. If there was no camera, I could tell you. So I'll take a pass on that. And don't forget, Debbie, I have the Canadian Beat Scene Literary Publishing and Festival, but I haven't been able to put a festival on because of COVID. Now, with that aside, I'm from Wishawapu, New Brunswick, Canada. And Debbie and the gang are now my family, since literally my personal family has abandoned me for, I don't know, for whatever reason. So finding everyone in 2019 at the festival, you have no idea what it meant to be included and never abandoned again. I will read from Walk on Water, the Beat Poet Laureate book from local Gem Press. I'll read 3 poems. And wish me luck. These glasses are not that good, or my eyesight is getting worse. Oh, one more thing. Hi, Larry. I finally get to see you after 15 years of chatting with you online. Okay. This one's kind of hard to read. It's a poem about New Year's Eve in Newfoundland. And if you know the dialect there, you'll you'll see when I'm done. If you understand this poem, you're smarter than me. New Year's Eve resolution. I shiv on this cold eve to waddock and wave between bursts of snowdrop. I bond and hop from every snowdrop to luridly cheat by skipping thoughts as blue drop flakes flock upon my tongue. I balk and curse at resolutions aloud and gunned in despair at this verbal alphabet drung. I boo-hoo-hoo at the freezing rain to fish hog under in my breath till dawn. I can anti-shore with the best of them as I yaffle and daffle and sigh. But tomorrow at this eve's storm is droke and egotistic. So I merry begotten jig along, swearing to resolve nothing till next year's muzzle tripe. Did you get it? This is another one about Newfoundland. I don't know why I'm fascinated with the province of Newfoundland. Maybe because my mother was born in Corner Brook, but she never spoke of it much. But anyway, a lot of my poems are about Newfoundland. Okay, I gotta bend the book here. Northwest Passage. Turbulent rain, oars slice at ocean's map. A fisherman's eyes like a beacon, like beacons, like a beacon pier. Death, not a thought. He's got family, children, traps to haul, and cold beer. Stillness, Dory's rainbow, the harbor, sun rising with a yawn as tides ripple safe on shores, mending traps. Yellow, blue, white, red brushes lined upon a wooden pallet. Tall grass, dragon horse, butterflies, seagulls awake against this water-washed sunset. Icicle telephone lines, the still inlet, maritimers' beehive of morning boats, dot the water like fag butts. Distant laundry, full mast, birds circling, signal storm ahead. Warmth of a wood stove, coffee, fried eggs, bacon spitting in the cast iron pan, rubber boots waiting near the back door as morning sun zips its warm jacket and leaves. Raincoat still damp from yesterday. I am lost here, give me a second. Like tears lingering on the shores of his wife's face. Children, like tiny archaeologists, explore forgotten coves. Black labs, nerves strained by barometers temp. Fishermen's hands on hips, blue jean weathered life. Boats need repair, wife desperate, but sea calling, calling profound. Bedroom curtains toss and turn in fury, eerie like a Stephen King novel. All roads lead to the wharf are clogged with fog, dreamlike. Footsteps, cigarette lit, deep sigh, a distant horn heard, ball cap removed, reshaped. Gift from God, Tim's coffee. The boys gather in prayer as coffee as strong as their will. Another tear, another Friday night alone. Her love wavers like evening tides, shallow and cold. Home late, drunk, sex-starved, he got the booze. Can he con her? They don't make love anymore. One as lost as the other, their eyes shipwrecked on deja vu. Maybe tomorrow things will change. Another day to mend, a beer or two, cigarette stuck to the lip and a second tucked behind ear for safekeeping. Traps to mend, lit beacons upon jig upon mouse shore as another passage map unfolds. Gee. I thought I had them all marked. Found it. Where poetry is more than words. Tribute to save Canadian poet Al Purdy's home. Published in the Al Purdy anthology, Left a Place to Stand On. This poem was co-written with Shetland Island poet Natalie Hall. To tear the roots of Canadian poetry is like felling the maple tree, a century of words left to rot. His home in verse, trunk and branches together with his friend Acorn. Our national history grew leaves, flowers, and fruits as heritage from coast to coast. Leagues of poets germinated from mountaintops to glacial crest. Let's not allow the lumberjack to tear down trunks, or roots will rot walls of his home, words, raison d'être. Canada's national treasures, near century trees left to seed bright foliage for generations. Thank you.
Thank you, Donna. I think the second poem that Donna was reading was about me. She changed the names, maybe.
Okay.
Next, we have Larry Jaffe. He was the Florida Beat Poet Laureate, 2018 to 2020. And he is a poet, a writer, but especially he's done extensive work protecting human rights across the world. He's a human rights activist. And maybe you could tell us a little bit about that, Larry.
I'll give my
Welcome.
best. Thank you, Debbie. It's good to see you all. William, Donna, John, Clive, Chryssa, Baba, Ping. Somebody's missing. Oh, Bengt, sorry about that. Anyway, it's a pleasure to be here with y'all. I started writing when I was 8 years old. I was in day camp and they had a newsletter. I wrote Uncle Larry's nature column. Good Lord knows why I did that. But it started my fascination with words, and I love words. I remember my earliest writing saying I breathe in letters and breathe out poetry, you know? I've been active in human rights for, good Lord, probably 40 years now at this point. Especially in the area of human trafficking. I do workshops and talks about human trafficking. It's hard to believe in this day and age that there's still slavery on this planet. And money-wise, commercial-wise, it ranks only second to munitions in illegal commerce, somewhere in the neighborhood of $40 billion a year. And it's a renewable resource because slaves are traded and sold all over the place. The one area I've picked on specifically is in the area of what's called grooming, where a predator goes online and lures a young person offline for purpose of sex trafficking. So I lecture parents and do workshops with parents on how to prevent it from happening. I've written a lot about it, a lot of poetry about it, and I will continue to do so. Because there's nothing that irritates me more than human traffickers. I don't know how they live with themselves. Perhaps they don't. But that's my cause. That's my purpose in living. That in poetry. Like I said, I love my words. Any other question, Deb? Or did I answer that okay?
That's good.
Yeah? I should shut up now and read some poetry?
Mhm.
All right. I will read some poetry. I'm going to start off with a poem. I have a series of 3 poems I'd like to do, if that's okay. This poem, first poem, is called Racial Indigestion. They sat on velvet thrones, these modern-day St. Peter's, holding court at the Basilica of America, processing my relatives in the grand arcade of Ellis Island, changing my people's names to eliminate their history in signatures of disapproval. They sought our strengths, wanted our wealth, but not our dignity or birthright. There could be no culture clashing colors to meld with principles of Americanized democracy, where my ancestors were processed white. My great-grandmother Pesci was suddenly inscribed as Pauline. How nice that sounded without the tinges of the ghetto she escaped, leaving her heritage to wake up in America with a new, solid identity. All the world is this Western European stage, processing my ancestors and bleeding our past into their gene pool and their record books. It gives me racial indigestion to wonder where my ancestors have gone. It gives me racial indigestion as these words bleed from eye sockets clogged with tears, from eyes blinded with rage, and these anthems that weave lies into stars and stripes. I skipped my heritage, long lost in the Isles of Ellis Island. That was the first one. Oops. Let me fix this. Trying to get the screen right. Okay. This next piece is called One-Eyed Splendor. I see you with one eye because my other eye is too busy confronting reality. With my right eye, I take in your grace and beauty, while my other eye is jaundiced by the man in rags begging for food or drink and maybe work. Then I see your smile working hard to get my attention, but when I watch the news about some drive-by shooting of children, my attention is split, and now I have one eye crying and the other smiling back at you. My life feels crossed as my eyes peel away in opposite directions. One eye wants to enjoy life and the other crying because of it. It splits me apart right down the middle, and it's not that I don't love you. I just don't know how to love life when it looks at me this way. I always keep one eye peeled for trouble and the other aimed for pleasure, and my fingers fly across my keyboard, creating beauty in people's lives so undernourished by pain. When my one eye feels that blemish, my other trying to be optimistic. But when I see you lying there in erotic slumber, I want to close my bad eye. I want to close my bad eye when I walk down the street, even if it's Beverly Hills, because behind that facade of rich and famous lies this empty rice bowl soul. And I want to close my bad eye because it cries so damn much. And on that side, I'm running out of tears. Tears of submission, tears of admission, tears of seduction, tears of reduction. Too many damn tears bleeding from that damn eye. While the other stays awake, doing crossword puzzles and writing love songs, and perhaps dripping a tear of joy now and then. But things are way out of balance. My tear ducts are out of balance. My emotions are no longer harmonious. I see shadows playing in the darkness, and I wonder if my good eye has any tears to spare. Thank you. Thank you. And my final piece, which is a brand new poem. This has been a trying year for creativity for me. Some of you know my wife and I have a bakery down here in Florida, and just keeping it alive during all of this craziness has been a trip and a half. But I managed to squeeze out a poem the other day, so I was very proud of myself. It's called As a Man. As a man, I have to take responsibility for all men. The rich ones, the poor ones, the handsome and the hideous, the fortunate and the ones most spiteful. As a man, I have to take responsibility for all men, the warring ones and those that walk in peace, the fearing ones and those that offer comfort, the leeching ones and the innovative ones. As a man, I have to take responsibility for all men, the happy ones and the grieving ones, the intelligent ones, and those whose IQ missed the mark, the silly ones and the dour. As a man, I have to take responsibility for all men, the lovers and those meek of heart, the sinners and the sainted, the helpers and the helpless. As a man, I have to take responsibility for all men, the liars and the truth-bearing, the cheaters and the faithful, the ones with hearts of gold and the acrimonious. And as a man, I have to embrace all men, no matter the color of their skin, the gods they praise, the politics they preach, the genders they wear. As a man, I have to take responsibility for all men. Thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity. I appreciate you, Debbie, more than I can say. I appreciate my friendship with a lot of you. And
Well, I just want you all to know that once you get into this organization, there's no way out. You're here for life, all of you.
it's sort of like a Roach Motel, you know? You come in, but you don't go out. Anyway, I just wanted to thank everyone for letting me read today.
Larry, I've known you for a quarter century and you've never disappointed me.
Well, I'm glad I didn't start today. I remember the first time we actually physically met at a hotel in Santa Monica, as I recall.
Yep. And then we went out to dinner.
So again, thank you all.
We have a lot of interesting stories, and this is only the beginning, but I do want to start having little sessions like this where we interact and learn more about each other, you know, our little family that keeps growing. Now we might have Pilar coming on shortly. I just heard from her. But I want to ask Chryssa, would you like to read something? Next, we have Chryssa Velissariou. She was named the first International Beat Poet Laureate in 2017 to 2018. And then in 2019, she was given the title of the Greece Beat Poet Laureate Lifetime Award. Welcome, Chryssa.
Thank you. Thank you, Debbie. I'm very glad I'm here with you and the other great poets, and it is a honor for me to be among them. Just a minute to find my poems, because you always surprise me. Well, the precious voice of the poets. What better could a poet find than his voice? It is not enough to write a poem. At least, it is not enough for me. I have to speak out about it. To speak out so that I can communicate what's written. I would like to communicate and shake others with what had shaken me. I rhyme in a choir with every other person who burns inside like me. Usually, I do not feel different than the crazy person in the street, crying, "Repent! The end of the world is near!" But really, what I write has a soul. And this soul is necessary to express itself, to be discussed, to catch the frequency of the audience and reconcile with them. Hers must communicate at the rhythm of the whole that the intellect can conceive. The vague takes shape with the collective logic that can mutate everything into clear. There are times when a poet chills instead of speaking, because he needs to be understood only by the birds. There are other moments when the poet hisses and crawls because he needs the wisdom of snakes. Thank you.
Goodness. Thank you, Chryssa.
This was one, and this is enough. You don't want more?
You can have more.
I can have more?
Yeah.
Okay. Pilar didn't come yet? No?
No, not yet. She said.
So I must continue.
Yeah.
People do not talk. People speak. They do not talk. But their ultimate disadvantage is that they cannot listen to others. I keep practicing. I find it so difficult. So once I was sitting across from a stranger and I was told to just repeat every sentence he said. Well, I did, but then when I was told to repeat his story, I realized that I was focused on practice and not on meaning. Then I sat across from him and started watching him. He did the same without talking for a while. When we described what we were thinking of each other, of each other's personality, we realized that silence made us meet more than talking without listening. I will tell you a secret, but keep it hidden tenderly in your head. I once met a great unconditional love. Something happened and we broke up early. Since then, he did not want to talk to me again. He only murmurs the songs I write in my soul from afar. I do the same. I will teach you the sound of silence, he told me. And then we will become one. This was the second. This was the second.
Thank you. Thank you, Chryssa. So that ends today's session. I wrote to Pilar. She hasn't responded since, so, you know, I can't wait all day. I mean, really.
This was a fantastic group, and we heard some fantastic words.
Nice evening, I agree. Well spent.
I could read something before we go,
Yes.
if you're willing.
Why spoil the? No, no.
Yes.
Please do so.
Where's my bio? I don't know. Where's my bio? This kind of tells it the story anyway.
Can I introduce you first?
I grew up on a dairy farm. We were poor farmers, and we had cows and we had chickens. We had one goat and one goose that was better than any watchdog could be. And I also had a collie dog, and she was our protector on the farm. I've been writing since I was a child, but I'm also an artist, and I've been drawing and painting, making pottery, giving lessons. I spent many years, actually over 12 years teaching Tai Chi Chuan in New York City. And one of the people that would frequent my class was Allen Ginsberg. But I never really got to know him or hang out with him. He would just come to class and we would exercise together. Okay, so here is my poem to end today. Stay. I'm just an ordinary woman, nothing extraordinary, just plain ordinary. I did what was necessary to survive. My poor beginnings were only poor for lack of the dollar. Instead, I was gifted with natural surroundings that nature provided. Things like clean water, clean air, breathing peaceful surroundings, enough food to satisfy, making me appreciate the thing that sets me apart. I'm just an ordinary woman, hardworking to create something extraordinary. I never give up. I keep on creating a better vision of myself. I'm not legendary, not living extraordinary. I'm just here living life. My beat beginnings have only forced me to redefine the word beat, which to me means to keep evolving. And that's what this organization means. We keep evolving. We keep evolving to make better versions of ourselves. And we are succeeding. And when we're all famous and have people sending money from all over the world to us, we're all gonna go to Greece. I'm gonna send all of us to Greece to visit Chryssa. How's that?
I will find the money.
I want to go to Greece. I've never been to Greece. I'm trying to go to Greece, you know.
And we all fit in Chris's living room?
Yeah. Yeah, I think we could fit in there. But she'll take us to her little bungalow by the sea, right, Chryssa?
Greece has great theaters and everything. Everywhere, Greece is a theater. In my town, it is one of the towns, I think the only town that has a theater, an ancient theater in the middle, in the center. Two ancient theaters. And we use it. This too.
So what time is it there, Chryssa?
It is late. It is 10 o'clock.
Oh, 10
in the
o'clock.
PM.
Yeah. That's not too bad. Usually when I'm
No.
talking to, it's like 3 a.m.
No, but I had a very difficult day. In the morning,
Yeah.
I was practicing clowning, and afterwards, I had a conference, and now it is something amazing that it is happening to me. To listen to you. Thank you all.
Well, you know, maybe this is great. Can I tell a little story about Marx?
Sure.
Marx said that history is not driven by dominant personalities. And the social movement that he was part of happened long before he came along. And the shop workers in England wanted him to write a manifesto, and he refused. He didn't want to do it, and they kept asking him. Finally, he gave in. It's like they knew he was good with words, and he wrote the manifesto for them finally. But he didn't move the movement. The movement was already there. The movement just picked him as a figurehead. And I suspect there's a sort of movement now that you're part of. Just this rekindled interest in the beats as the celebrities die off. Because I think maybe that what the situation of the world now is a little bit similar to the world that the Beats grew up in.
Ah, Pilar!
Pilar's coming in.
Okay.
Oh my goodness.
And that we're all part of that. It's really wonderful what you're doing, Deborah.
Thank you.
We appreciate your hard work, Deb.
Thank you.
Truly, we do.
All right, gotta bring up.
I can assure you that David's voice and the organization is heard afar. And I observe it many years now, and I see it growing because I think it is a movement, as you said, Mr. Matson, Clive. It is a movement.
It's
Well,
reassuring to see it that way, isn't it?
I think I'm driven by the idea of making the world notice that we aren't a bunch of degenerates. You know, we're not, maybe we're not complete drug addicts or drinkers. I don't know. I myself am not a drinker or drugger, but you know, I think that the original Beats were very misunderstood. They were far ahead of their time, I think, and I think they were very because of them being misunderstood. They were frustrated, and they turned to different substances, you know, to comfort themselves or something like that, you know, because they couldn't get their points across. You have to understand, you know, in the 1940s, 50s, what they had to say was not accepted in any shape or form, you know. So I want to say our next poet is Pilar Miranda. Is that how you pronounce your name?
Pilar Rodriguez Aranda. Yes, you said it right. I'm sorry. I thought we were supposed to meet at 1.
Well,
My
it was
time.
1 in Eastern Standard Time.
Oh, Eastern. Oh, sorry. Oh,
No, that's
I
fine.
thought-
That's
oh, yeah,
fine.
that's Pacific time. It's just like, I'm sorry. I apologize for being late. I thought I had an hour. So yes, hi.
So Pilar is a poet, a video artist, translator, and published author. Welcome, Pilar.
Thank you, Debbie. Very glad to be here. Sorry I haven't heard, but I'll hopefully I will listen everything I have missed, or most of it. Later.
So tell us about yourself and read something for us after.
Okay. Well, you've already mentioned that I also do video. All my life when I was young, I wanted to be a filmmaker, but this was because I didn't know there were other ways to communicate. And much later in my life, I had to accept, like around my late 20s, the fact that I was not going to be, or even early 30s, that I was not going to be a filmmaker. I didn't have the personality. And I just caught the end of the conversation and this whole thing about being a beat poet, it was like, yeah, that's me. It's like I'm always questioning and going against what's supposed to be and has to be, and so I had to follow all these steps to do what, to be a filmmaker. I had to be pitching and selling myself, and I can't do that. I'm very bad. So when I started doing video art, that term didn't even exist. I was just doing video, and I just mixed my poetry and some of the other people's poetry, and I did a video, an experimental video. That's much how it's described. And then it won a prize in Mexico and in another festival. Years later, now they call it video poetry. So I guess in that sense, that's what I am. I'm always exploring, and I think I'm a poet, no matter what the medium, even life itself. I like to make my life be maybe not a poem because it sounds corny, but something where I'm happy. I'm happy not in the terms of always smiling, but complete. Just don't feel I owe. We're compromising all the time, but that's with people you love, and not with people you owe money to, or that kind of thing. So I don't know. I didn't say much, but in general terms, I was born in Mexico City. I lived in Austin, Texas, and Arcata, California, and Santa Fe, New Mexico in 80s, 90s. And I've lived in other cities in Mexico, but now I'm in Tijuana. I've been here for 6 years now, and doing all kinds of different things, like co-managing a bookstore, which sounds always very romantic, but it's hard work. And doing other things, and now writing prose and wanting to get into fiction, historical fiction. So, that's kind of like some story of me.
Before you go on, I want to show you your award that you will be getting. I'll be sending to you as you become the this year's International Beat Poet Laureate 2021, which I'm very happy to be presenting you with that award.
And I was so surprised and thankful, because I know it comes from fellow poets, and I feel thankful that it comes now in my life, when I'm feeling a bit like, poetry, it's always there. It's always been there. It's never going to leave me. But I felt a bit frustrated in terms of communication. And funny enough, now that I came back to the borderlands and got more active, especially in San Diego, started publishing again in English, and that's where maybe my audiences right now, even though in Mexico I do know I have an audience as well. It's a little harder. There's many less magazines. There's just less outlets, and so I'm like a subterranean author, in the sense of, given my age and where other authors are, who are more literal in terms of literary terms are more recognized. I feel that my life has been what is still a good ride. I've been an activist, and I continue to experiment. Now I'm doing also I'm trying to finish a photo book. I'm calling it a photo book because I'm really trying to mash the poems and the photos, not just put a poem and a photo, but
that's nice.
So anyway, like I said, I feel it's like when I first met some of the organizers in Salerno, Italy in 2015, organizers for 100,000 Poets for Change, and unlike in other poetry festivals, I felt kinship. I really felt strong kinship, and that's what I feel. With what I've been starting to see, and hear and read, with all you poets that I will get to know. I promise. So I don't know if you want to have a question for me, or maybe easier or something, or should I?
No, I mean, you can read something. We're just happy to see you and hear you and have you share with us. I was telling everyone before, when you weren't here, that once you get into this organization, I'm never letting you out. You're stuck here for life, seriously. So you have to get to know us now.
And I'll be really happy to do that. I was not prepared to read because I thought it was more of a interview. So I'm not sure I've been working in some stuff lately. The last months I've been writing a lot of English poetry, just came out like that, and I've always loved English language. That's probably why I work as a translator. I started learning English as a child in a bilingual school, and then, like I said, I lived in the States. So for me, it's no surprise that sometimes poems come out in English, or then sometimes I work them both at the same time because I'm translating them, and then I change the original. So, because I think I sent for the event, I sent more an older traditional. So I'll do that. I'll read. Let me just quickly find it.
Well, that's going to be played during the festival also. So.
Oh, okay. So it'll be a different piece. Or maybe this one. I don't know. Political one or a love one. Sort of a love poem.
They're kind of the same, so.
Okay, well, that's the one that came up, so let's go for that one. Let me just be sure. Yeah, here it is. I haven't actually never read it, so it'll be a estreno. And I started in Spanish, but then somebody asked me for a poem in English. So I started working on the translation, and at the end now I have to go back to the Spanish and rewrite things, and I don't mind. I love it. It's just it's fascinating how grammar and order can change images, or realize that your images is not as precise as you thought it was. Anyway, so this one is called, put my glasses. Post-acid. And at the beginning, it describes a place that's near Ensenada, that it's called La Bufadora, and a bufador is like when like it throws well, I try to describe it so you know, the ocean comes through the rocks and then goes up.
Oh, like a blowhole.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, Bufadora, yes, the spray comes way up in the sky. It's beautiful.
Yeah. So, here it goes. Over the mountain embracing La Bufadora, there hung a hat cloud, an aerial humidity of fungus, the aureate aura of an abandoned whale. The sun sand hath turned into a written silver code, chewed over by birds twaddling among them, while looking at us, dizzied by our noise and clumsiness. One of them, not being able to glide the strong breeze, flew epileptically over the rim of the waves. The tide and the dropper speed trade from morning to evening, well-being, pleasure, and satiety. The sun shining with pizzads on the ocean, on that fine, soft, interminable sand, and on us. I didn't say it, but again, I knew myself yours. I accepted it and felt sated with acceptance. Samphirious love laced through mango-flavored eyelashes, salt inside our mouths. Sated by your body next to mine, your presence, sweet, stern, and pataphysical, survivor of all boredoms in a junky city, worn away by dust and bloodied templates. I refused to hit the wall without understanding, so I reclaimed my body and ran towards the sea. Beneath my feet, I felt the fragility of the support given by the compacted floating like sand. Running caused my blood to pump and me to feel the sensation of flight and a momentary freedom, leaving behind the pain in my right shoulder blade, a contracture I contained, such cunning spasm. A deaf sound, the nervous snorts of starts, the light on the estuary, plants of aqueous reds and greens, the sea promising everything and giving nada, not a murmur, perhaps the slightest of shivers. The route back and the return we did not wish for, a distance of ages, facing life as usual. I ran towards the sea, but you paraded. So nice, because just by looking at you, I felt, again, sated. Captivated by the boy walking towards the water, his body becoming smaller as you receded. My eyes gathered your life in reverse until I discovered you innocent and started loving you in a different way. Tijuana, BC, 2016, 2020.
Thank you. Thank you. So this it's about 3:30 here, and 10:30 where Chryssa is in Greece. We're gonna end this session now.
Early for me. Early. It is early for me.
It's early for you, yeah. But I myself have been very busy, very, very busy. Preparing for the festival next week in person, which is the hardest festival I've ever had to plan, under a tent. I had to buy my own tents because no one had tents since COVID. They didn't have any tents. They had leased them all out to all the restaurants and businesses. So I actually got the last 2 tents that were the same. So I got 2 10 by 20 tents to make 20 by 40 space. It's been unreal. And then not knowing what the weather's gonna really be, because now we have another hurricane coming up the coast. So, you know, I don't know what's gonna happen, but at least I do have a tent. I don't know if we'll be under it or what. It's hard to say. But yeah, I mean, it's hard.
Well. Do you have a plan B?
Not really. I mean, I'm doing these online sort of little interviews and having people read something for those that can't come in person. And that list keeps growing as to who could have come and, you know, who's canceling out now. So everything's changing daily up until probably the festival day. Yeah. But it should be interesting nonetheless. You know, last year I had
What
one
you're
day.
doing is,
Huh? Go ahead.
what you're doing is marvelous, Debbie. You're holding a space for the rest of us. Whatever this is, a big loose family or a movement or a worldwide interest that's been rekindled. Whatever it is, it's wonderful that you're doing it.
You know, I wrote to the Poetry Foundation.
Did you?
This sounds weird or crazy or whatever, but I wrote to them recently, and I kind of complained to them that when they have a section in their on their website about beat poets, and of course none of us are listed there.
We're not there, no.
You know? And I kind of complained to them saying that you know, when we're actually asking them, when were you going to recognize that, you know, the movement did not die, it's continuing. And
I rest my case.
you're kind of, you know, like behind the times here, and when you're gonna come to your senses, basically. They didn't answer me, of course, but
Debbie, you have to have 2 MFAs to be able to talk to those people.
yeah, I don't have any. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not poetry if you have to have a degree to figure it out. My opinion, of course.
They actually they concentrate on all the poets that have passed away, you know, so that they can't say anything back or complain about whatever they say about them, you know. But we're here. We're gonna be known, one poet at a time, you know.
Yeah. It's wonderful to be here and hear all the wonderful stuff.
I mean, we are being recognized little by little. You know, people know who we are, I think, now. If you Google, you know, beat poets, we do come up on the search, you know, now. The organization website does come up. So there's hope. There's hope. So I want to thank you all for meeting here today again. I'm glad you got to get on, Donna. You've been trying for so long to get on Zoom. I'm glad you got on. And Wang, I just want to tell you, you do so much for us and the world with your words. I can't even begin to thank you. But I just want you to know it's not going unnoticed, your work.
Your work is not going unnoticed either. So I know how much energy you have. I know it's a lot of work to put this together. But we're sending you energy.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, and encouragement. So, and I hope your car issues will be solved smoothly.
Oh, that whole thing with the car. It sounds like a joke, but I had the Goddess Festival in 2020 in March, and we had heard about COVID virus, but nothing had been done. There was no lockdown at that time. But right after the festival, the Goddess Festival, it had to be like 3 or 4 days later, we went into lockdown. Okay, so it's kind of crazy because a lot of people came to that festival and no one knew anything about a virus really. And then all of a sudden we're in lockdowns. But anyway, my van, which is a 2005 van, Chevy Estro van, and it has 320,000 miles on it. But believe it or not, it was not the engine or the transmission. And it's still a mystery today as to what actually is happening to the van. So I make a joke and I tell people that my van got COVID back in March of 2020, and it hasn't been the same since. It still has repercussions, from the virus, because I have had at least 14 different parts replaced on that van, and it hasn't worked more than a week each time something has been fixed. It goes back, to ready to clunk out, and I have to bring it back, and then they find something new. And it's the craziest things that that it ends up being, and as soon as it's fixed, it's something else.
Debbie, you have to get it vaccinated.
But it was out of the shop for 2 weeks. I mean, it was like I didn't even remember how, I was like, do I remember how to drive this thing? I mean, really, it's been 2 weeks. I had it for 2 weeks where it was actually running, and then all of a sudden it started hesitating while I was driving, and it was the fuel pump, and then it was the steering pump, and then it was something else. I can't even remember what the part is. And my mechanic actually had to make a part for one of the things because they don't make that part anymore. So he actually took parts from other types of cars and put them together to make one of these parts that went into the van. And it's still ongoing because it was supposed to be fixed today. And then when I started this meeting, this Zoom, I was getting texts from my husband, Mike, saying that he was down at the mechanics, and the mechanic was saying that he found 2 other parts that need replacing. I'm like, really? And then he had to order them. So I mean, it's just not gonna happen, like I don't know what's gonna happen to the van. But up until that point, even though it has so many miles and everything, I used to go all over the place. I drove down to Florida and back, up to Maine and back, and all over. And Bengt, that you were in the van, right? I picked you up.
You picked everybody.
Yeah, and Chryssa was in the van. I mean, Donna knows the van. But all these people I would pick up because it is seated 8 people altogether, 7 with me, making 8. And I would pick everybody up and drive them all over, and it was like fantastic. Yeah. And now I haven't had it since COVID. I got sick. But no matter what's happening to it, the engine is perfectly fine. It's not leaking oil or anything. The transmission is fine. So, I mean, those are the two major things. But it's all these little quirks it has now. So, anyway, that's what's happening.
It is a bit fun. It is a bit fun.
Huh?
It functions as it will. It wants. When he wants, when it was, in fact, it works.
What is B? What is B? He asked me what beat was, so I told him beat is not a what, beat is an it. What is B? It's jazz blue. What is crying out on a night of moody stars over us?
So we're going to say goodbye for now. Okay.
All
It was
right.
nice seeing everybody and listening to everybody, and I love you all. I really do.
Love you back.
Thanks, David. It's a wonderful thing you're doing. This whole group.
Thank you. I try hard. Like I said, I try hard and I never give up.
Yeah,